Hi everyone. This is Helen Rosenfeld. I am the executive director with MSEF. Welcome. I'm so excited to see you all join us at 5 on the Thursday. We were trying to figure out the best time, and this seemed like the best opportunity to catch you. As you all know, we host the regional science fairs across the state at different institutions, and we're really excited to have two of them represented here today. We have Tufts University and Worcester Polytechnic Institute here, and we just thought this would be a really...
Okay, so I'm gonna hang up because the double audio is kind of confusing.
Okay, I was gonna ask if everybody can put themselves on mute and video off for the time being, and then we'll open it up for questions and certainly allow you to ask your questions, and maybe that'll help with some background noise. Great. So we thought this would be a really interesting opportunity for you to hear directly from our university partners and learn a little bit about the admissions process, and particularly since you're all committed to science and engineering, maybe you have some questions specifically about those interest areas. But with no further ado, I'm going to introduce our speakers. We have Becky Stiles from Tufts University and Claudia Aviles from Worcester Polytechnic Institute. And I'm going to invite Becky to present first, and then Claudia can present. And the way we'll do it is they'll each have about 10 to 15 minutes to, if you guys could put yourselves on mute, please. Thank you. So each of them will have about 10-15 minutes to talk about their respective institutions, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. And if while you're hearing them speak, you want to put some questions in the chat, I can prioritize that in order, and then I can either read out your questions when we get to that point, or I welcome you to take yourselves off mute when I call your name. So with no further ado, thank you so much, Becky and Claudia.
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so hello community, welcome 5 p.m. We gotta love it. So for today, I'm gonna be talking about Tufts University. Again, my name is Becky. I'm an associate director at Tufts University. I'm also an alum. I graduated in 2012 and I studied architecture, environmental studies, and I also accidentally minored in art history, which is kind of like a fun thing that you can do in college. But I'm just gonna take about 10-15 minutes to talk about Tufts and what I think makes our community so special, and I'm really excited to share our community with you. So as you can see by this lovely picture that I think is slightly photoshopped, aren't all college pictures photoshopped? We're about 4 miles outside of Boston proper, which is only about a 30 to 40 minute train ride on the Red Line. So we're very close, very great access to the city. To make it very easy for everyone to understand where we are in the world, we actually have 5 different campuses. So the majority of our undergraduate students who are in our School of Arts and Sciences, which is everything from the humanities to the arts to the social sciences to the hard sciences, that's where the majority of our undergrads are. They're on that main campus about 4 miles outside of Boston. That is also where our School of Engineering is. In total, we have about, again, 5,800 students. Of those, about 900, again, are engineers. So about 20% of our student population are engineers. We do also have a full fine arts program, and maybe you're thinking like, oh, Becky, like, I want to do science, I want to do engineering. Like, how is that related to fine arts? Well, my friends, if you are someone who thinks, I really want to use that giant 2-story kiln that was literally adapted from a missile tip, you are in luck. We have that at the School of the Museum of Fine Arts. If you are someone thinking about mechanical engineering and you are just super excited to dive into the world of biomimicry, what better way to learn from a sculpture professor and an engineering professor? So there's a lot of really great overlap. Never barred from taking classes outside of your major or outside of your school. So very interdisciplinary and very easy to kind of flip between the different schools and different areas that you're interested in. And then on the lower left-hand side, you're going to see kind of a graduate hub in downtown Boston. It's in Chinatown on the Orange Line. It's our dental school, our medical school, our graduate school of biomedical sciences. We got our Friedman School of Nutrition there. We also have a, just casual cows in a field. You can imagine that is not in Boston. That is about 40 miles into Massachusetts in Grafton. And that is our Cummings School of Veterinary Medicine, which is a graduate program. And then very casual, we also have our 5th campus in Terroir, France. This campus is a 10th century Benedictine monastery in the Alps on a lake. There's no way to say that and not have it sound bougie, but I promise it is not. It is primarily a study abroad location used by Tufts students over the course of 6 weeks of the summer. You take 2 classes taught by Tufts professors in English. It's super popular with our engineers and with our kind of research intensive students because you might want to be on campus all 8 semesters, but the beauty of Terroir is that you still get that abroad experience and you get all of the credits that transfer directly back to your degree. And Terroir is actually, I did this for my study abroad. It was the first time that I left the country and I was able to go on a full scholarship, and it was really exciting just to like be in that environment. I took an art history class and a civil engineering class. For my civil class, we got to go to the World Health Organization, which is only an hour from Terroir, and we got the opportunity to talk about water technologies and policies and how what we were doing in class was relating to what they were doing at the WHO. So again, these are our 3 main undergraduate programs, so arts and sciences, engineering, and the SMFA. A quick note for all of our schools, you do come in undecided. For students in the School of Arts and Sciences, you have 2 full years to figure out exactly what it is that you want to major in. You do have a faculty advisor from day 1 who is there to help you figure it out, think about what you might want to explore. If you maybe want to pursue a double major, a third of our students in arts and sciences actually end up pursuing a double major. Computer science and bio has been especially popular lately, lately fitting together computational bio studies. But we also have students doing like comp sci and classics. We have a really great online database of a lot of digitally archived materials, like primary resources. And that is something that a lot of our classics students love and a lot of our comp sci students love developing. In engineering, you also come in undecided. And for our students in engineering, project-based from day 1. All of our engineers have what we call our Intro to E class, your very first semester. So that's to help you figure out what you want to do, because I don't know about you, but at my rural New Hampshire high school, I didn't really have an intro to chemical engineering class to figure out what the heck that was and how it was different than chemistry. So for us, we want to give you those tools to figure out what it is in a small class of only first-year students taught by a professor. We have classes literally called like how to make stuff. So you can go into our brand new No-Lot makerspace, play around with all of the different laser cutter machines, all of the different CNC machines, dabble with the 3D printers. Brandon Stafford is there like 24/7. He's the staff member who runs it. So really giving you opportunities to dig into the different things that you can make at Tufts. We also had a really cool class that was looking at the movement of insects. They worked with a bio research lab, and they were like, okay, we're going to analyze the movement of these insects, and then we're going to apply it to the soft-bodied robots that we're creating. And then we're going to try to make those robots move even more efficiently across a lot of different types of terrain. And then at the end of the class, all the different groups with their soft-bodied robots had a race across the floor. So like really fun stuff. Continues through your 4 years. You have a senior design project that you get to make on your own. Like we're very friendly for students who want to do their own design projects, their own research projects. We've had students do things like make a fetal heart rate monitor that expecting moms can wear so that it wirelessly transmits data to the hospital so the mom doesn't have to go in quite as much, but the doctors and nurses get the information that they need about the baby. So really cool stuff through all 4 years. Again, super project-based. Again, everybody comes in undecided. In engineering, you have a semester and a half to figure out what you want to do, and all of our engineers have to take 8 classes in the School of Arts and Sciences. So again, like very interdisciplinary. Our students are excited to engage in a lot of different things in order to inform how they're thinking about the world. So like we have an engineer who is also majoring in sociology because they're super interested in access or lack thereof to different solar technologies in different communities in Boston. So again, very interdisciplinary, very fun. Look, they're all just so happy. Like students at Tufts are just nice. They're really excited to jump into really complex problem solving. Very collaborative. The very first question on every single problem set in our School of Engineering is literally, who did you work with on this? So it is a place where, yes, it's a rigorous engineering program, but there's a sense of community and support through every single step of the way. And then again, School of the Museum of Fine Arts, which is located in the Fenway in Boston proper. And there's, again, a lot of different studio spaces there that you can absolutely take advantage of if you're a student in arts and sciences or engineering. And then academic life, I have touched upon it a little bit, but I want to talk about after graduation. 98% of the class of 2019, they were employed in graduate school or in scholarship programs. So think like Truman, Fulbright, etc., within 6 months of graduation. So again, we're making sure that our students are supported and then have access to whatever they want to pursue after graduation. And I've touched on research, but it is such an integral part of the Tufts experience. 60% of our undergrads do research by the time they graduate. From the humanities to engineering to the hard sciences, we have students doing research in virtually every single field. Literally all that it takes to get involved in research is to find a faculty member who's doing cool stuff and you're excited about that stuff, and you email them and you say, hey, do you have an open spot in your research group? I'd love to get involved. 9 out of 10 times, they are actively going to be like, yeah, I would love to have you in my group. If they don't have a spot, they will more often than not reach out to their colleagues who are doing interesting things to see if they have any spots for you to be in their research group. I think that one of my favorite stories about research at Tufts is one that I heard from the Dean of Engineering just this year about students that he came into contact with last summer. So last summer in August, he was walking around CLIC, which is our Collaborative Learning and Innovation Complex. And you know those cliched college hallways that are just like, hallway, trendy, bright colored furniture, and then just like whiteboards in the hallway and students writing very complex equations on the whiteboards. So that's essentially what CLIC looks like. And Dean Q was walking down the hallway. He saw like a group of students working together. So he walks up to them and he's like, hey, what are you working on? And the group of students is like, oh, we're actually in a research group. We're working on inverted pendulums. So essentially thinking about the device in something like a Segway that is going to make it more accessible and safe for a wider variety of people. So the students explain this, and then Dean Q's like, so what year are you guys at Tufts? And they're like, oh, we're actually incoming first year students. So they hadn't actually started at Tufts yet. They were just so excited to get started. And a faculty member was so excited to have these students that they were able to start even before they officially started at Tufts a few weeks later. So again, so easy to get involved in research. And then life on the hill. So yes, we are on a hill. You will get very powerful calves walking up and down the hill. We are a primarily residential campus. So our first and second year students do live on campus, and you're required to live on campus. After that, it's up to you. If you want to live on campus, if you want to live off campus. We are in a very neighborhoody area. So for us, living off campus is like, you're a block away from the main academic buildings, and you might actually be closer to some of those academic buildings than if you were living on campus. So it is a very residential, like traditional New Englandy feel. And again, students are just really nice. People are super involved in and out of the classroom, and they're just super humble and really excited to learn about all of the things that their friends are learning about and that their friends are really excited about. So here's some pictures. Dining, that's important. You'll be very well fed. We have 2 great dining centers. There's like a fierce rivalry between them, even though they serve the same food. One's just uphill and one's downhill. Unpopular opinion, Carmichael is better. On the right-hand side, this is one of our first year dorms, residence halls, Miller Hall. And then on the left-hand corner, bottom corner, you're going to see one of what we call the triple deckers. So in the Boston area, a lot of our students will live in these apartments with their friends if they move off campus. We also have a lot of specialty housing on campus. So if you're someone starting your sophomore year that you want to live in Capen House, which is attached to the Africana Center, or you want to live in the German language house, those are options that are available to you starting your sophomore year. Over 300 clubs and extracurriculars. So if you are someone who wants to shoot rockets into space or be in our theater in the round, literally anything and everything is available to you. And engineers and our fine arts students can participate in anything and everything. So nothing is off limits to you. Here's just more pictures of our lovely students. And again, campus vibe. Everyone is just very nice, very down to earth, very collaborative. We never have a 24-hour period in our library. We want our students to like leave, because they are not only students, they are also humans for the course of 4 years that they are a part of our home. So it is very much kind of that family vibe on campus during the entirety of your time at Tufts. And a quick point about admissions. So for our requirements, we do require high school transcript. We are test optional for the next 3 years. So you do not have to send your test scores to us if you do not want to. For the hard things that you must send to us, you can send the Common Application Coalition or QuestBridge. We do have the personal statement that you will be filling out. We have 2 Tufts specific questions. Fill out your extracurriculars, letters of rec. Again, all of that is in the main application, and then some more optional pieces. And then for financial aid, Tufts is an institution that meets 100% of the full demonstrated need of all admitted students, regardless of citizenship status. So that includes international students, documented students, undocumented students for all 4 years. So how we calculate that is you're going to fill out a lot of super fun paperwork when you are applying for financial aid. We crank out numbers from that paperwork and we push out something called the expected family contribution, or the EFC. We subtract that from the total cost of attendance, and what's left over is essentially your financial need, aka your financial aid package. The majority of our financial aid packages are grants, which you don't have to pay back. We cap loans every single year, so it starts around $5,500. It'll go up a little bit every year after that. And then for work study, it's about $2,000 to $2,500 a year. I think the average indebtedness of a Tufts student is right around $18,000 to $20,000. So we're trying to make it as affordable an investment for all students who want to come to Tufts for their undergraduate education. And here's some helpful things. There's a virtual tour, and then our Instagram handle, which is doing some really cool live everything this week, including Q&As and some live tours. So I very highly recommend checking that out. Okay, that is all. I talked really fast because I always am stressed going first because I want to make sure the next person has enough time. So I apologize.
That was very impressive. You managed to pack a punch in that short period of time. Thank you. So we'll do Q&A after Claudia has presented. So I will invite you now to present. Thanks.
All right. Can everyone see my screen okay? All right, great. So hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Claudia Aviles. I'm an Assistant Director of Admissions here at WPI. I'm going into my 3rd recruiting season this coming year, and I'm responsible for recruitment in Northern California and New York City, as well as Westchester County. I'm excited to tell you a little bit more about WPI today. So why WPI? I know many of you are probably already getting started looking at different colleges, and so we've just sort of summarized 3 sort of takeaways that we want you to be able to walk away with from this presentation. So the first one is that WPI is a we do deliver a STEM-focused education where humanities and arts matter. So over 95%, a little over 95% of our students graduate with a STEM-related major, but we do want students to have that access to take classes in humanities and arts to make sure that you're well-rounded. So that's also a requirement for students to do courses in humanities and arts. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. We are also a research university with a project-based curriculum. So at WPI, starting from day 1, almost all of your classes will have some sort of project component. And what's important to know about the projects that you're doing at WPI is that you're working in teams. And so it's a very sort of collaborative learning environment. And I always tell this to students because I think it's important for you to be asking yourself some questions throughout this process and ask yourself, am I someone who likes to work alone? Do I like to collaborate? Because the curriculum here will require you to work in teams. Additionally, to tell you a little bit about the more for making the most of your education while you're here, our students can do that in a couple of ways. We do have a dual degree bachelor's master's program. I've known of students that have graduated in 4 or 5 years with their bachelor's and master's degree, which is really incredible. And then also having the opportunity to do co-ops and paid internships as well. A co-op opportunity, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with co-ops, but it's essentially a professional opportunity that you get to have as an undergraduate. You wouldn't be taking any classes while you're doing a co-op. You're essentially working at a company as a sort of full-time employee for anywhere between 6 to 8 months. So you get the opportunity to sort of practice in the field that you're interested in. To tell you a little bit about our academic programs here. So as I mentioned before, about 95% of our students will graduate with a STEM-related major. The most popular program right now is engineering. We have 12 different types of engineering programs, everything from biomedical to civil, mechanical, robotics engineering. We're actually the first institution to offer robotics engineering at the undergraduate level, and we now also offer masters and PhDs in robotics engineering. We currently have computer science as our second most popular major at WPI. That's been the fastest growing major in the last 5 or 6 years. And with the computer science major, students can choose whether they want to have a concentration in artificial intelligence or cybersecurity. We also have an interactive media and game development major for students who are interested in, there's 2 paths. You can choose to focus on the video game development, so the content of the video game, or you can choose to focus on the aesthetics and the sort of visual arts of the video game. So that's a pretty neat sort of different major that we have to offer. And then another subset of our students will major in science and math fields. So majors like biology, biochemistry, physics, math are options for students as well. We have the ability for students to minor or double major. So about 1 in 3 students will add a double major. And then about, 1 in 10 students will double major, and about 1 in 3 students will add a minor to their sort of major. The most popular minor is business. So for students who might want to have, get that sort of STEM focused here to entrepreneurship, that's really what that minor is focused on. We also, in terms of students who might not be sure of what they want to study, that's okay. 20% of our class enrolls as undecided. So students may know that they want to do something in the STEM field, but they're not exactly sure what that is just yet. That's okay. When you apply to WPI, you're not applying to like the School of Sciences or the School of Health Sciences. You're applying to the institution as a whole. So once you get here freshman year, you have the freedom and the flexibility to try out different majors and change your mind. The Career Development Center, they actually offer a 3rd credit course called Exploring Majors and Careers, where they talk to students a little bit more about the different majors that exist and provide different pathways that you could potentially take with different majors, career pathways. And so that's a helpful class that I think a lot of our first year students take just because they want to learn more about the different majors that are available and also where they can go with those majors down the road. Something that I like to share and we're really proud of is our retention rate from a student's first year to their sophomore year. That is at 95% at WPI. We do have something called the Insight Program, which is a program that you essentially do in your first semester at WPI. It starts during orientation, but essentially you are paired with a community advisor, a residential advisor, and a faculty advisor, and they're providing advising to you to make sure that that transition from high school to college goes smoothly, because we know that change sometimes could be a little difficult. Another thing I want to highlight is our student to faculty ratio. That's at 13:1 at WPI, and we try to keep that on the smaller end just because of the nature of the projects. And oftentimes our students do want to talk with their professors and meet one-on-one. And I also will encourage you to I don't have the virtual tour link, but I definitely encourage you to check out our website so that you can do a virtual tour of WPI to check out some of our facilities, our maker spaces, our labs, and we have some live virtual tours that our students do as well. So I definitely encourage you to sign up for one of those to just get a better look at WPI. So an important thing, an important distinction is the WPI plan. It's essentially how we deliver academics, and there's 4 parts to it. The first part is the academic calendar. So we have a pretty unique calendar at WPI. Our classes are divided into 4 7-week terms. So you have A term, B term, C term, and D term. Each term is 7 weeks long, and students are taking 3 courses in each of those terms. And your coursework does not roll over from A term to B term. You will be taking 3 new classes in every term. So I hope that makes sense. After each term is over, you do get a break. So between A and B term, students get a 10-day break there. Between B and C term, you get your traditional sort of winter break, which is about 3 weeks long. And then you have the break between C and D term, which is about another 10 days. And then classes typically end in early May at WPI. So students have essentially the part of the time in May, June, July, and August to do some co-op, to do an internship, perhaps a paid internship. That's certainly a possibility. About 2/3 of our students will do internships by the time they graduate over the summer. We also have the opportunity for students to take courses at WPI during the summer. We have something called e-term. And so for students who, for example, let's say that they want to get that dual degree, the bachelor's, master's in 4 or 5 years, they may want to take us up and take courses over the summer. You can take them virtually. You can also take them in person. In terms of our grading policy, this is also pretty unique at WPI, and this is the second part of our plan. So we have a non-punitive grading policy. What this means is that professors give out grades of an A, B, or C, or an NR. NR stands for no record. There's no pluses or minuses because professors want students to truly collaborate with one another. They don't want students sort of fighting each other out for that A+ over the A or A-. So they're flat letter grades. And with the NR, we have that there so that students can feel like they can take risks. And, perhaps you've never taken a computer science class, but you want to try that out, but you're afraid, oh no, if I take this class and fail, it's going to affect my GPA. The NR actually doesn't show up on your transcript. It doesn't affect your GPA. It's really there as a safety net. And on average, our students will NR between 0 to 1 classes, so it's not something that is often used, but it is nice to know that it's there in your back pocket in case you do end up getting anything below a C in a course. Another thing I want to share is our flexible curriculum. So students, when they get to WPI, we have something called recommended backgrounds. And so when you're signing up for a course, let's say you've maybe taught yourself some calculus. And so if you want to go ahead and sign up for Calculus 2 instead of Calculus 1, we'll say that the recommended background is Calc 1, and it'll give you the sort of concepts that you should know. But if you feel like you want to challenge yourself and take some upper level classes, you're more than welcome to do that because, like I mentioned, it's just recommended backgrounds that we have, not prerequisites. Our students also work closely, as I mentioned before, with their faculty advisors starting their first year so that they're sort of planning. They have a tracking system or a tracking sheet for every major, and students can see what courses they may need to take in order to fulfill the requirements of that major. And so they would work closely with their professor to fill in the courses that they would need to graduate with a degree in that area. I also want to mention that for students who may be taking AP courses, if you get a 4 or 5 on your AP exam, we do accept those as credit, which is nice. So if you're taking those classes now as sophomores, as juniors, seniors later on, definitely put your best foot forward on those because oftentimes they could equate to credit in college. Now, the last part of the WPI plan is our project-based curriculum, and there's 4 different sort of projects. There's 3 projects that are mandatory and 1 that is optional, and a great problem seminar is our first project here that students have the ability to do in their first year, and this is the only project that is optional. And so the great problem seminar will span the course of 2 terms, so A term and B term, or C term and D term. And the themes that you're exploring in your Great Problem Seminar are related to topics such as heal the world's water, ignorance is not bliss. And each of these are looking sort of at a global, at this problem that exists around the world, whether it's around education or water, as I mentioned, or food shortages. And so they would spend the first term learning a lot about that problem. And then in the second term, students are forming groups and learning how to, they will pick a way to sort of solve that problem and how they would tackle that problem on a smaller scale. So to give you an example, we had students in the course concerning food shortages. What they did was they got together as a group in the second term, and they were able to come up with a way. They noticed in the cafeteria there was a lot of food waste happening there, and so instead of students serving themselves, folks in the cafeteria would serve them, and so this created less food waste, and any sort of food that was left over was donated to a local food shelter in Worcester. So that was one of the solutions that they were able to find right here on campus. In terms of our second project, the Humanities and Arts project, this is a project that is required for students to do. And as I mentioned before, it's to make sure that you're a well-rounded engineer, computer scientist, or entrepreneur, mathematician. And so you can choose what you want to do your humanities and arts sort of coursework in. Students can take courses in history, English, writing, theater, music, foreign language, but you're required to do 4 classes that are your breadth, and then 3 classes that are your depth. And so students, usually your last course that you take, it's a sort of capstone project that shows what you learned in your humanities and arts coursework. So we've had students who have done, have chosen to do art, and they created an exposition for folks to view at WPI, put on a sort of art gallery. We've had students who have done music as their humanities and arts sort of requirement and composed a piece for the WPI band or orchestra to perform. So there's a lot of flexibility in the humanities and arts and the different projects that you can do for that. The last 2 projects, the IQP and MQP projects, are very well known. The IQP is the Interdisciplinary Qualitative Project, and that's a project students will have to do in their junior year. The project will bring together students from different majors, different backgrounds, and you're given a project sort of based you have to solve a social-based problem using your STEM mindset. And so we've had students, for the IQP, you can choose to go to a different part of the world. You can choose to stay on campus, but students are using their STEM mindset to make some sort of change in the community. I can give you an example. We've had students who a couple of years ago went to Denmark, and they were looking at the recycling behaviors. And they basically worked with the sanitation department in Denmark to give their findings so that people were more inclined to recycle and looking at those behaviors a little more closely. We've had students now for the MQP, your senior year capstone, which basically will show everything that you've learned in that major. So it's like you could think of it as your senior thesis. We've had students who were, for example, biomedical engineers. They designed a prosthetic for a sea turtle, Lola the sea turtle, who was missing one of her fins. They designed one as part of their MQP project, but it's something very tangible. You can work with the professor to come up with the project. Oftentimes, they also have projects that different companies or nonprofits may come to the professors with, and they want WPI students to help them find solutions. As I mentioned before, there is the opportunity for students to go abroad with these projects. So you can choose to do your IQP or your MQP in a different part of the world. We're currently, and everywhere where you see the red dot is where we currently have a project center. And students also receive a global scholarship of up to $5,000 to be able to have one of these experiences to go abroad if they're interested in doing if they're interested in doing a project abroad. And the reason students are able to kind of fit this into their schedule is because the IQP and MQP are each worth a 3 course equivalents. And so you can go away for one of the terms and complete your IQP or your MQP in 7 weeks. Oftentimes the MQP does need more, typically students are taking their whole senior year, but it is possible for you to go away to do your project senior year. So that's something to keep in mind. In terms of our campus life, we are a primarily residential community. In your first year, you are guaranteed housing, but past your first year, you are not guaranteed housing. So we have about 62% of our upperclassmen who will live on campus. And for students who do live off campus, about 90% of them will live within a mile radius of WPI, so still very close and very easy for you to get on campus. In terms of extracurricular opportunities that we have for students, we are an NCAA Division III school. We have 10 teams for men, 10 teams for women. And if you're interested in competing at the varsity level, that's something that is available to you. But if you're not, like myself, I was not inclined when it came to sports in college, but I did play in your intramural sport. So you do have the opportunity to choose if you want to participate at that level. Perhaps you want to participate in a sport at the club level, which is a little less, is less competitive than the varsity level, where you're still playing against different schools. And then at the intramural level, it's really just WPI students playing against other WPI students. And games might happen like 2 or 3 times a term. So less of a commitment there. In terms of clubs and organizations, we have over 250 different ones, everything from affinity clubs to different cultural groups. Students can decide if they wanted to do something related to gaming, but definitely a lot of different options there for students. And if you come to WPI and you don't find something that you like, you're certainly welcome to start your own club. That you need 25 signatures and you can start your own. I'm sorry, are we okay for time? I know we're.
Yeah, we need to just give a little time for Q&A, but it's fine. We have another minute.
Okay, perfect. I will breeze through these. So Worcester, we are located in Worcester, Massachusetts. And Worcester is very much a college town. We are the 2nd largest city in New England. I know I'm talking to a mostly Massachusetts crowd, so you're probably familiar with Worcester already. In terms of what we're looking for in students, we're reviewing your application holistically. And so we're looking to see that you're someone who enjoys working in teams, you love math and science. And then in terms of, I want to emphasize the academic profile we're looking for. We want to see that you've challenged yourself in math and science. And we are a test optional school. So if you feel like your test scores don't accurately reflect your abilities, that's okay. You don't have to submit them. But for students who did submit, you can see what the middle 50% scored. And that is all that I am sharing with you. If you would like to provide us with your information, you're more than welcome to use your cell phone to get the QR code, and you can sign up for additional, to be on our mailing list and get more info from us.
Fantastic. Both of you are exceptionally good at packing in a lot in a very short period of time, so I appreciate it. So I want to open it up and give us enough time for Q&A. So I haven't seen anybody put any questions in the chat. So maybe now that you've heard from both Tufts and WPI, you have some questions percolating. So I invite you to put a message into the chat, or if nobody's doing that, feel free to, I think you can raise your hand or you can wave at me and we can take you off mute. So while you're formulating your questions, I'll just start by asking both of you, perhaps you can tell us what type of student thrives in each of your schools.
Yeah, so I think Claudia's last slide did a really good job summing up, honestly, what both of our schools are looking for in students. I think that WPI and Tufts are very similar in that regard. We are looking for those socially conscious students who want to problem solve, who want to work with other people, who are okay with failing, because that's what engineering and science is all about. Failing doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means you got to keep going till you kind of maybe get some answers. But a secret is, as you know, like MSEP, it's like, will you actually get an answer? You don't know. So it's just people who are really excited to explore and open up their minds to a lot of different ways of thinking about the world.
Yeah, I would say exactly what Becky said, and just to add a little more, students who are not afraid to get their hands dirty, you know, are interested and sort of like that sort of project way of learning. And I would say something that I've seen oftentimes in the process, something that's could be challenging for students at times is that math prep. And so for the students who are here, I know most of you are sophomores or juniors, which is awesome. I like to get in front of students as early as we can because math prep at WPI is really important. So at the very least, we want to see that students have taken pre-calculus by the time that they've graduated high school to be prepared for some of that math coursework that they're going to be taking when they get to the institution. And I don't know, Becky, if that's a similar requirement.
Yeah, we have it just for the School of Engineering applicants. So if you are someone who's applying specifically to the School of Engineering, you need to have taken both physics and calculus in high school. It's fine if it's your senior year, but you need both of those.
We have a question from Simran. Maybe you can ask yourself, take yourself off mute.
Yeah, hello. So my name is so my question is, how important is the resume, like the amount of activities and volunteering that you do in college, in the college admission process?
Good question. And it looks very different right now, right? In the era of a global pandemic, as it should, as we scattered and quarantined in our homes. I think that for us, it's a very holistic review, right? And I feel like WPI is similar. For us, we're not looking at a student's extracurricular list on their application and thinking, oh, we want to see that they have done at least 3 years of this type of activity, and a Boy Scout is better than a varsity captain. That is not a thing in the realm of selective admissions. For us, the extracurriculars in our process really help us understand what you're invested in outside of the classroom. So we might have some students where their literal only extracurricular is a professional dance company, because that's 40 hours a week. And how can you be a student and a full-time dancer essentially and do something else? It's just there's literally not enough hours in the day. But then we have other students where they maybe were trying to find what they really liked in high school. So they had a few commitments their first and second year, and then really found what they wanted to continue with in their junior and senior year. So it's really not a value judgment. It's just a way for us to better understand what is important to you and helps us build that image of who you are in our minds as admissions officers. And everything that you do outside of the classroom is an extracurricular. So it's not just school specific things. If you are someone who has to pick up your younger siblings every day from daycare, like that's an extracurricular. If you are the translator from your parents and have to help pay bills, that's an extracurricular. If you have a part-time job, that's an extracurricular. So know that, again, not a value judgment. It's just another thing that's helping us understand who you are and who you might be in our community.
Yeah, I think you answered that really well, Becky. I was gonna add, I think we just want to see how you're spending your time, your free time, right? What are you doing when you're not in the classroom? And I am glad that Becky highlighted those different sort of commitments that students can have, because sometimes students have that opportunity to explore their passions and participate in sports and or any other sort of extracurricular, but then other students have different sort of ways that they have to spend their time. And so I think for us, it's just important to know, how are you spending your free time? And it kind of gives us a sense of what kind of community member will be if you end up at one of these schools. And I know right now, for those of you, we are in a pandemic, and so we are going to be flexible. I know with the students, we've already had conversations in our office about the applications that we will be reviewing this year, how we have to be flexible given that so many things were canceled or changed. And so we are going to be mindful of that when we're reviewing applications and not holding, not penalizing any student for not having something, you know, spring 2020 or summer 2020, because obviously the circumstances are very different right now. So I hope that kind of brings some ease and reassurance of how we would be reviewing applications.
Thank you.
Sure, that's very reassuring to everyone. I saw a hand raise. I think it was Sam. Please feel free to ask your question.
Hi. So I was wondering, so are there any topics that you see frequently on application essays that are kind of unoriginal or they seem uninspired and they could lower your chance of acceptance because they're so overused?
So, sorry, I can go again, Claudia. I feel like I'm just jumping in. So sorry. For us, like how I like to frame it to students is that, okay, so I'm headed into my 5th year in admissions. I've read over 10,000 college essays. The secret is there is no topic that is unique. Like that's the secret. Like literally no topic is unique. But how you talk about that topic is inherently unique because that's your perspective, that's the mindset and the way of thinking that you're bringing into classroom spaces. So for us, I really think that you can write a good or a bad essay about virtually anything. I think it's really cliche, but as long as you are really sticking to a topic that's kind of core to your identity that you want to share with someone like Claudia or me on the other side of the computer, do that and like trust us to find how you're thinking about the world and how you're writing about that specific topic. Because again, it can be good or bad about any topic. You know, I think that how I tell students to lean into actually writing their essays is just write like how you speak, like how you talk to your friends, because it's not like a 5-paragraph hamburger essay, you know, in English class. It is you sharing a narrative with us. I've seen essays that have been written in Java. I have seen essays where it's a full slam poem. There's no right or wrong way to do a college essay. I think the more specific and authentic you can be, as specific and authentic as you can be, that's going to give us the best insight into who you are. And I'm sure Claudia has like a million. Also, the important.
No, I think that was great. I will add, you know, I think it's very, very rare. Like the application essay that you're writing is just one tool. It's one sort of factor in your application that we're using to get a better picture of who you are. And so there's, you know, it composes one piece. We're looking at that on top of what you've been participating, what your teachers have to say about you, your counselor, how you spent your time outside of the classroom and what classes you've taken, how you've done in them. And so it's just one piece. And so I would say my advice, you know, some things that I've seen, like if you want to tell us more about an extracurricular and how that's impacted you and really spend some time with that, do that. Sometimes maybe some students may want to give us a list of all the things that they've done, but there's another section for that. So being mindful of how to use that space, I would say use it so that you can tell us a story about who you are. And like Becky said, I don't think I've seen, because I'm still relatively new, I still feel like I'm seeing some unique essays, but it's not to say that that a unique essay is automatically that one factor that is going to determine whether you're in or not. You know, that's just one piece, one tool. And I would say use it so that you can just tell us a little bit more about you and don't overthink it. I think a lot of students get so nervous, like, oh my gosh, my college essay, it has to be perfect, it has to be unique. And it's impossible really, because as Becky mentioned, we're reading so many applications. But I would say just try to tell us about who you are, because we want to gauge what kind of community member you're going to be, get a sense of who you are. And that's one tool we use to get a sense of that.
Thanks. Let's see, anybody else in the chat? Oh. If no one else has questions, I'll keep on asking them. So you probably would prefer to ask your own. Anyone else? Or wave a hand. So while we're waiting for some more questions, share a little bit perhaps about how well students need to know where they want to head in during their college career. So do you, once you establish what your preference is when you arrive, can you change your major very easily, or are you really sort of intended to remain on the same track that you started?
Claudia, did you want to take that one first?
Yes, I can go. And I think I touched on this a little bit during my presentation, but so at WPI, you don't have to know exactly what you want to study in terms of STEM. I am honest with students, the curriculum is very STEM heavy. As I said before, 95% of our students graduate with a STEM related degree. So I would say if you know you want to do something in the STEM field, that's when I think WPI can be an option for you. If you're someone who is more interested in liberal arts and wants a more robust liberal arts curriculum, then WPI might not be front of mind for you. So it is very STEM focused. I would say when you're applying, students apply to the institution. You're not applying to a certain major. We don't have caps for any majors. And so you apply, and we accept students based on the belief that you'd be able to find success in any one of our STEM programs. So you can come to WPI as a first year student, maybe have an idea that you want to try mechanical engineering, and maybe you are also interested in biochemistry and you want to try these two out. You can do that. You can take an intro course. You can also perhaps do the majors and passions course that the Career Development Center offers. But students have the opportunity to declare a major in their first year after the first semester. So you can declare a major, but I've heard of students changing up until their sophomore, even junior year. I would say a word of advice though is it's important to, if you want to graduate within the 4 years, to be having that conversation with a faculty, your faculty advisor, so that you can see what sort of, so that you're on track of graduating in 4 years with that degree that you intend on having. So there's never going to be a time that we'll say, no, you can't change your major. But you have to be mindful of, if you change your major, if that puts you beyond the sort of 4 years that you're there, which can impact things like financial aid.
Yeah, Tufts is very similar in the realm of, if you do delay in kind of changing your major, it might tack on some extra time or require summer classes. But at least in the School of Arts and Sciences, which again has hard science classes and has some minors that are engineering related, you don't declare a major for the first 2 years. It's an expectation that you're exploring, because that's what college is for, especially in a liberal arts environment. I will say, I thought when I came to Tufts, I was like, I'm going to be a math major and a history major, because my high school was tragic and those are the classes that I had exposure to, and that's what I thought I was going to do. I come from a high school that sends 30% of students on to 4-year school, so I didn't really understand what to expect when I got to college. So long story short, first semester comes, I take Calculus 2, should have been in Calculus 1, got kind of a wake-up call, and that first semester I also took an art history class because I was like, this is a thing you can study, and fell in love with that class, fell in love with the professors, and that's how I eventually geared architecture with a focus on sustainability. And I am very thankful that I went to a college that had the options for me to kind of pivot and adjust as I learned more about what it meant to study different academic areas. I will say we do also allow students in engineering and arts and sciences to switch schools. So if you are someone who comes in as an engineer and your first year you're exploring, like the example I gave earlier, you think that you want to be a chemical engineer, but then you slowly realize, oh, actually, like, I'm really interested in biochem. Very easy to switch out. We have students switching out of engineering as late as their sophomore year. And we do also have first year students who are able to transition into our School of Engineering if they find that that is a better fit for them academically. So we don't really tie you down or want to tie you down. Because again, it's all about exploring. Undergrad is really the last time in your life that you're gonna have like a full-time experience of being immersed in a very intellectual environment, at least for the majority of us. So take advantage of it, like explore new things, explore new community spaces, because intellectual things don't just happen in the classroom. And I think that for our students, they really take advantage of that, and we make sure to build into the structure of our academic experience the ability for them to do that.
Great, thank you. We have a question from Mariana. I don't know if you want to ask yourself. I can read it if I don't hear your voice. Okay, so during the application process, what GPA, weighted or unweighted, do you look at?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and answer that. So when we're reviewing applications, we're reviewing you holistically. Oftentimes we're looking at first, I would say what's very, very important is the rigor of your sort of coursework. And so we're looking to see that you've taken 4 years of English, 4 years of math, and 2 years of a lab science, as I mentioned before, when it comes to math, up to pre-calc at the very least. And if your high school has the opportunity for you to take some sort of more rigorous courses in math or science, or for example, if they offer like honors chemistry or AP calculus or AP computer science, we would love to see that you've taken advantage of those courses. And so one of the first things we're looking at is rigor. And then we're looking to see, right, how you've done in those classes, how you've performed. And so I like to use the example of, right, if we see that a student in, let's say, AP chemistry received a B, and there's another sort of profile of a student that maybe didn't decide to challenge themselves, and their high school had the opportunity for them to take some of those upper level classes, but the student, let's say, that one student got a B and the other student that took the regular chemistry course got an A. I would say, like, the student who's challenging themselves and taking that upper level class, taking that risk, even though they may have gotten a B, that I would say is brings attention to the applicant, because it shows that they're not afraid to challenge themselves and take more rigorous courses if they're available. And so the GPA, I would say, between the last 5 years, it's ranged anywhere between a 3.4 and a 4.0 unweighted. I hope that makes sense, but I want to try and emphasize how important that the rigor of your sort of coursework, how that really plays a role in how we're reviewing applications.
It's the same at Tufts. We also do not recalculate GPAs, so it is essentially what your school gives us. If they only give us an unweighted GPA, that's what they're looking at. If they do give us unweighted and weighted, we're going to look at the weighted GPA. Just because we have students applying from over 2,000 high schools all over the world, and for us, it's like, I have high schools that grade on an HH plus, HHH system, which is nonsensical to compare to someone where it's an ABC or a 100-point scale. So for us, it really is about that rigor and understanding your high school and what you have had available to you.
Great, thanks. So we're coming up on the hour, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. You've both shared such incredible you've given color to your campuses and your student life and your institutions. So I appreciate that. Makes me want to go back to college for sure. I know for those of you on the call, if you have follow-up questions, we'd be happy to either be the in-between to send that question on to either Claudia or Becky, or we can put you in touch with them. Don't hesitate to follow up. And so I just really want to thank both of you for your time today, and also to all the students who are on. We appreciate your interest. And I also want to shout out for Claudia to step in at the last minute because we had some issues with the storm bringing people's power down. So thank you for stepping in. Thanks again to everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.